We talk a lot about rights, people having rights in particular ways, and we'll talk a lot about rights in the different issues that we discuss in this class. That is one way of discussing ethical issues, what people's rights are. Do you have a right to life? Does somebody have a right to an abortion? Does a third party have a right to perform an abortion? Do we have a right to die? Do non-human parts of our environment have rights? So rights is perhaps an indispensable way of discussing ethical issues. And certainly we know that in the discussion of the morality of abortion, the right to life is a central issue. What is really interesting, I think, about Thomson's essay is the way that she handles that particular subject. And the point that she makes, which you'll see, you probably have seen already in your reading of the essay, is that the question of rights, and especially the question of whether or not the unborn child, a fetus, different stages of development, has rights, is of course an important issue, but it's not a deciding issue. And that's what makes this essay really, really important. That is, one of the things that Thomson does in her defense of abortion is to concede from the beginning that the fetus at some stage of development becomes a person, becomes a human being and a person, and that therefore the fetus can be said, perhaps at a certain level of development, to have rights in the way that we normally assume that persons have rights. But then to still go on and defend abortion, that is, to concede that the fetus has a right to life because it's a person, although she indicates that that's not entirely clear, and that in fact she doesn't really believe that, at least until a certain stage of development of the fetus. But just to concede it, to stipulate it, and to go on and to try to demonstrate that simply to concede that the fetus is a person and therefore has rights does not actually decide the issue of abortion. That is, her point being that opponents of abortion oftentimes think that if they can establish that the fetus is a person and has rights, and therefore that abortion is clearly wrong, because a person has a right to life and abortion involves killing a person. What's really interesting about Thomson's essay is the way that she seeks to show us, I mean, whether we agree with her or not, that conceding that does not decide the issue of abortion, whether abortions are right or wrong. And the most interesting and surprising way that she does this is with her idea of the famous violinist, the idea that you wake up one morning and you find that you have been attached by tubes with a famous violinist, with a human being who has a kidney ailment, and that human being needs access to your body to survive. And the question is whether you can rightfully disattach yourself from that human being. I mean, it's very interesting because it's very imaginative, it's very creative, and it allows us to think of the issue of abortion perhaps in a different way. Not that being pregnant is exactly like being hooked up to a stranger by tubes who needs your body to survive, but it does allow us to think of the issue in a different way. And then the question is, can you rightfully, justly disattach yourself and therefore kill the human being who is relying upon your body to survive? Because the assumption is that that person has a right to life, and if they have a right to life, doesn't that mean that you have to lay there for as long as it takes, perhaps forever, if their right to life, their enjoyment of that right, depends upon the use of your body? Thinking about that situation is the beginning of understanding Thomson's argument. She also makes later on a very interesting an analogy, pregnancy situation with a visit from Henry Fonda, who is an old famous, great old movie actor who some of you probably aren't familiar with, but was a very famous person of the time. When this was written in the early 70s, Thomson says, well, you know, I have a right to life, and say that I developed some obscure disease that can only be cured by getting a visit from Henry Fonda and having him put his hand upon my fevered brow. The question then is, you know, okay, I have a right to life. To live, I need a visit from Henry Fonda. Do I have a right to a visit from Henry Fonda? That is can Henry Fonda be justly compelled to visit me and to cure me of my fatal disease? You'll see, of course, what she thinks of that. But if you think about that, you know, the answer is not obvious. But then, you know, the question is, can you compel a human being to do something that you need to have done to enjoy whatever right you have, in this case, the right to life? So this is a very interesting essay. Obviously, the details remain, almost all of them, to be worked out. But what I would like, you know, in your reading and understanding of it, is to really take that to heart, that she really isn't arguing the issue of abortion on the issue of personhood. That is, she's conceding from the beginning, or stipulating at least, that the fetus is a person and therefore the fetus has rights. And then, you know, the question is, well, where does that take us? How does that help us decide the issue? Her point is that it doesn't, that other things need to be worked out before we can arrive at a position on the morality and the justice